Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Transportation Infrastructure and Innovation Subcommittee. Do we have any, I'll call the meeting to order. Do we have any call to the public?
Chairwoman, we do not.
Okay. Then I'll go to minutes of the meeting. Is there any corrections? Or have a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve?
Okay, we
You got
definitely have
three
it
motions.
approved.
I'll second.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor? Please say yes.
Aye. Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are approved unanimously. Consent items, does anyone have any questions, comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say yea. I think we have all ayes. Passes unanimously. That takes us to the information items 8 through 10. Does anyone need a briefing on any of these items or have questions, comments? Hearing none, I think we will proceed and go to item 11. The staff want to give us a report.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Item 11 is an item to discuss the airport concessionaire contracts and the potential for extensions of those contracts. Recent discussions at this subcommittee focused on relief for those concessionaires, and action was taken to provide relief from the minimum annual guarantee for those contracts. This particular discussion has to do with the terms of those contracts and requests by the businesses for extensions. And so Charlene Reynolds, Interim Aviation Director, is here to provide a presentation and answer any questions the subcommittee may have. Charlene?
Thank you, Mario. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. The Aviation Department is before you today to seek your consideration of a 3-year term extension for the food, beverage, and retail concessions within Terminals 3 and Terminal 4. Sorry, having a problem with the
Does anyone have questions? Was Charlene complete? Oh, there we go.
On November 1st of 2020, the City of Phoenix received a letter from the airport concession Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. That letter was signed by 20 of the ACDBE partners requesting a 3-year term extension of their existing contracts in Terminal 3 and Terminal 4. The reason why they were requesting term extension was in order to recover from the business losses due to the pandemic, and also they had stated that this request would allow them to restructure and refinance their debt. Just to recap the business model at Sky Harbor International Airport, the airport leases what we call packages of locations and/or concepts to 2 or more operators. We have 8 prime concessionaires in the terminals that operate a majority of the locations. However, these primes will joint venture and/or sublease with local small businesses in order to meet their ACDBE goals. Currently, we have an ACDBE goal of approximately 27%. We actually exceed that participation, and also because we directly contract with the prime and not the ACDBE partners, the primes have also submitted letters on behalf of their small business partners requesting term extensions, and these letters were included in the packet. So I'll walk you through the capital investments and outstanding debt for all our ACDBE partners. I'll start first with Terminal 3. And Terminal 3 went through a major remodernization process that everyone is aware of. The first phase of that remodel process opened the terminal again in February of 2019. At that time, 10 of the 25 gates opened in the South Concourse. The concessions opened. However, they didn't have the full opportunity to enjoy the level of employment as Terminal 2 was still operating. The second phase of Terminal 3 opened in February of 2020. However, those concessions were quickly closed as the governor issued his stay-at-home order, and they have basically been partially open due to lack of employment because of the pandemic. Walking you through the outstanding debt within the terminals, I'll start with Terminal 3. Prime concessionaire SSP, they have 9 concessions within Terminal 3. They have 3 ACDBE partners listed here: Sarah Levy, Bruce Mosby, and Joy Kaiser. Their total capital investment was a little over $12 million. Their outstanding debt for those 9 concepts are $4.9 million.
Perfect.
Host International has 6 ACDBE partners, 6 concessions. They have 3 ACDBE partners listed here. Total capital investment, a little more than $12 million, of which $3.2 million is still outstanding. Hudson Group, one of our retailers, they have 7 concessions within Terminal 3. They have 4 ACDBE partners. They invested $4.9 million, and today they have almost $600,000 in outstanding ACDBE debt. Stellar Partners, they're also in the retail space. They have 9 concessions within Terminal 3 and 2 business partners, ACDBE, Joya Kaiser and Lachelle Magnum. Total invested was $3.7 million, and their outstanding debt is $1.6 million. The capital investment and outstanding debt in Terminal 4 is as follows. SSP has 27 concepts within Terminal 4. They have numerous ACDBE partners listed here. They invested $36.7 million in Terminal 4, and of that $36.7 million, they still have a little over $6 million in outstanding DBE debt. Host has 26 concepts within Terminal 4, numerous ACDBE partners. They had a total capital investment of $24 million in Terminal 4. Of that $24 million, $1.7 million remains outstanding. Hudson Group, one of our prime retailers, have 5 concessions. They have a couple ACDBE partners listed here. Their total investment was a little over $2 million. Of that $2 million, approximately $500,000 remains in ACDBE debt. Stellar Partners has 14 concepts within Terminal 4, with Lachelle Magnum as their primary ACDBE partner. Their total capital investment in Terminal 4 was $15.6 million. Of that, the outstanding ACDBE debt is $2.6 million. And Paradis Lagardère, they operate 14 concessions within Terminal 4. They have several business partners such as Gonzalo de la Minla, Teresa Dominguez, Sharon Mills, and Greg Torres. They originally invested in $6.2 million. However, at this time of this presentation, they did not report the outstanding ACDBE debt for these concepts. Casa Unlimited, they're a specialty retailer within Terminal 4. There's 4 concessions operated by
Okay.
Joya Kaiser Clark. And
Okay.
they have no ACDBE partners. They did
Okay.
invest $1.6 million, and they did not report any outstanding debt. We have Emotion Entertainment. They're a specialty retailer. Their ACDBE partner is Joya Kaiser Clark with Casa Unlimited. Investment is $1.6 million. Of that, $48,000 remains outstanding. Express Spa, also operated by Joya Kaiser Clark with Casa Unlimited. Their total investment in the spa was $780,000. Of that, they are debt-free and no financing remains. Going into the next steps for consideration of the 3-year term extension as requested by our primes and ACDBE partners. We will go to E-session to discuss this request on January 12th. And with that, that concludes my formal presentation for the subcommittee, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have relative to today's presentation. Thank you.
Does anyone have
Sure.
any questions?
I
Vice
do.
Mayor?
Yes. I don't know if I missed it. But when does the lease in Terminal 3 expire?
Madam Chair to Vice Mayor, those contracts expire in 2030. Those are relatively new contracts with the Terminal 3 opening in 2019 and 2020. All our food and beverage concession contracts have a 10-year term.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. And so with that, a few weeks ago, the president signed the coronavirus response relief supplemental. And it's my understanding that there is about $2 million in economic relief for the U.S. airports and concessions at those airports, and the FAA has now established the Airport Coronavirus Response Grant Program. Do you know how much of that money is going to be coming into Phoenix for relief?
Madam Chair to Vice Mayor, right now, we have our consultants taking a look. That bill was 6,000 pages. They're still going through. Right now, just kind of a guesstimate that we have, 1.75 billion was for airport relief. We believe that we will receive in the range of 20 to 30 million. $200 million was provided for airport concessions program, and we believe that that relief would probably be in the $1 to $2 million, $200 million for airport network of 400 plus airports that have concessions. It is some relief, but that relief will not go far. Originally, I believe that the concessions associations were asking for somewhere in the $2 to $3 billion range. So the $200 million that was actually approved is a small percentage of their original request.
And my second question to that, do you know if the concession companies are asking for contract extensions would be eligible for economic relief under this new program?
It is my understanding that all airports that provided rent relief to their concession partners, they would receive that funding, and then we will be required to pass on whatever monies that we receive from the FAA onto our concession partners. We're still awaiting instructions and guidance from FAA It is my understanding that FAA should have their guidance on the application of those funds within the next couple weeks. Those funds have to be applied not only to the terminal concessions, the food, beverage, retail, advertising concessions, car rental concessions, and parking concessions as well. So there's a large pool in which we have to apply that money, not just the food, beverage, and retail operators within the airport.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Anyone else have questions?
Madam Chair, I have, it's Laura. I have some questions.
Go ahead, please.
Charlene, can you go back to your presentation? There's 3 slides that I want to look at.
Okay.
And it's towards the end, it's towards the back. Okay. Keep going. Wait. Hang on. Okay, right there. Okay, so we requested for some information from the primes. And where I see ACDBE partners, those are the partners, but outstanding debt, is that basically it's a 0 or they chose not to report?
Madam Chair, to Councilwoman Pastor, we originally requested this information prior to the holidays. As we started putting this presentation together, we then forwarded the information that staff had. We asked for the primes and the ACDBEs to verify that the information was correct. We had a deadline to get this presentation in. We made them aware if we did not receive the information by 10 a.m. Yesterday, that we would have no choice but to report that no data was reported. In the case of Paradis Lagardère, at this point in time, we are reporting that they did not share any information with us because they missed the deadline. If they do at any point in time submit that information, I'd be happy to forward that on to the subcommittee members, but right now, as of this presentation, I do not have that data with me.
Okay, so as of between 10 a.m. and current time, 12-hour, I say almost 24 hours, you have not received any new information. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct. Staff has not notified me that we've had any new information.
Okay, can you go to slide 15? It's the next one. Now, on this one, it says ACDBE partners none. So where it says outstanding ACDBE debt, is that the same as Paradis, or is there no debt because there's no partners? Or how does this work?
Madam Chair, to Councilwoman Pastor, you are correct. We are still seeking information. There are no ACDBEs. However, in this case, Casa Unlimited, Joya Kaiser Clark is an ACDBE partner. If you're 100% ACDBE partner, you are not required then to have another ACDBE partner. So, so her capital investment would be 1.6 million. However, at this time, we do not have the amount of outstanding debt, but she is a 100% ACDBE partner.
Okay, and I think that Ben explains 16.
So,
There it shows debt. So I understand they're all separate, but yet, okay, go ahead.
Okay, Councilwoman Pastor, in this instance, InMotion is a national specialty retailer. They have two concepts. In this instance, they do have an ACDBE partner. In our program, you can be a prime, which Joya is in some concepts. In others, she is a ACDBE partner. What we have listed here is the total invested in those two concepts is 1.6 million. Of that 1.6 million, Joya has reported $48,000 remaining for that concept.
Okay, so I got it. The prime is in motion. She's the partner.
That is correct, Councilwoman.
Okay, so that's why, okay, and now I think you have a maybe 17's questions. No, you do have a 17.
I do have
Okay,
a 17.
so this is another, the prime is Express Spa and she's the, Casa is the partner.
Madam Chair, to Councilwoman Pastor, that is absolutely correct. Express Bot is the prime.
Okay, so then they're saying they have zero debt?
That is what is being reported to us. Again, staff sent the information back to the primes and the ACDBEs to verify.
So they're definitely zero debt. They reported zero debt and no data reported.
In the case of Express Bot, they reported zero debt.
Okay. Okay. And then my final, or I know that they're making this request for extension, but the ACDBEs, they're basically, their prime, other than these Express Spa, Emotion, Entertainment Group, Casa Unlimited, Parody, Stellar, Host, Hudson, and SSP, they're all the primes, am I correct?
That is correct, Councilwoman.
Okay, so the primes are really who we have the contract with, am I?
That is correct.
So the ACDBEs are dependent on the primes, and what I mean by dependent on the primes, it's really the primes asking for the extension.
Councilwoman Pastor, that is correct. The city directly contracts with the primes. The primes have a separate contractual relationship with their ACDBE and small business partners that the city is not a part of.
So what I would like to know is what the plan is from the primes into assisting the ACDBEs in refinancing, because I keep hearing that that we needed an extension in order for the ACDBEs to refinance. Am I correct or am I wrong?
Councilwoman Pastor, you're absolutely correct. They have requested an extension on behalf of their ACDBE partners, and if that is something that the subcommittee wishes staff to pursue, we will be happy to ask that question and ask for documentation on their efforts to assist their business partners as well.
Okay, I would like to make that request. Madam Chair, are you fine with that?
Yes, we have it scheduled to go to East Station. Perhaps we can discuss it there.
Okay, all right.
Madam Chair, I have another question.
Go ahead.
So this is more, and maybe I just didn't see it in the presentation. And when I met with you, Mario, I had asked that if we could see the numbers, because we keep comparing everything to 2019. And I think we've asked this in the past, we asked of it from Jem, when he was still here, I think I asked you, Mario, to put it in the presentation. Like, I would like to be able to see the numbers from 2014, 2015, 2016, 17, 18, just to be able to compare it. Because I think we keep comparing everything to 2019, which is the most profitable year that the airport has had. And look, and I get it that when they finance, no one financed thinking that we were going to be in the middle of a pandemic. And I don't think that it's unreal that these small businesses need the assistance. And we just received the contracts last week. So we need some time to be able to digest those and really understand what is it that we're extending. But I do want to be able to see those numbers. The other thing that we haven't seen, Mario, is a report. When we went ahead and gave them the rent relief, they're supposed to provide a monthly report on how they're doing financially. And I still have not seen that either. And that's something that they were supposed to do, I'm assuming starting since the first time we gave them rent relief. And we still have not, at least my office has not received the numbers on how is it that they're actually doing. So it seems that there's just still, and I don't know where the lack of transparency is coming from, but I just don't feel very comfortable with the way things are going right now, because I don't know if other council members are receiving those numbers, but I haven't seen those numbers to be able to make like real decisions on extensions, and even on rent relief. Like, I don't think anyone has an idea on where those numbers are at.
Madam Chair, this is Mario. To the Vice Mayor's questions, yes, we did receive your request for the comparison of the prior year numbers, and that is something that the staff is working on and pulling together. We didn't have it available for this presentation today, but it is in process, and we will make sure to get that to all of the subcommittee members as soon as it's available. And then for the monthly reports, Charlene, if you can just give an update, is that something that we've got that we can provide to the subcommittee?
Absolutely, Mario. To Vice Mayor, you have my commitment that you will have that information. The subcommittee will, within the next 24 hours. We do have the weekly reports. Our reports are a month in arrears. And then I'll directly after this meeting work with staff to go back and get you financials for several years going back prior to 2019.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Charlene, my question is, can you compare their debt to when the new contracts and the actual construction happened? I don't know how far back that happened or the updates, but I think it's only fair to them to compare apples to apples.
That, Madam Chair, then we will take a look at that, because relative to Terminal 3, there was approximately $30 million in investment in Terminal 3. And there again, they were impacted, and those concessions were closed due to the pandemic shortly after opening. In the case of several concepts, especially in Terminal 3, they had only been open 2 weeks prior to being shut down. So we will dig into those numbers as well. In Terminal 4, there was about $75 million in investment. So we'll do a comparison on the original investment versus the level of outstanding debt for those concessions as well.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions?
I have one more, and I don't know,
Okay.
Charlene, this is tied to the MAG, but could we get an update on the health insurance piece?
On the what?
On the the health insurance from the 61 days to possibly going to the 31 days.
Okay, Madam Chair, to Vice Mayor, I will certainly follow up with all our primes on that question. Per my last presentation to subcommittee, the subcommittee made it abundantly clear of their desire to have health insurance for their employees quickly upon their return. And so I will reach out to all our primes today to have that information at my next presentation.
And it's furlough employees.
And those furlough employees as well.
Any other questions? I want to thank everyone who submitted the financial information. Even though it's a public contract, it's got to be very frustrating to expose the liability you have. As a former business owner, I understand totally. You don't want people necessarily to know all your finances. And I understand why we've asked the questions, but I also thank them. Well, I thank all the ones that submitted the information to us. We will continue this. I think we have callers.
Chairwoman,
Let's
yes,
go
we
to the
do.
callers. Matt, would you like to call them off, please?
Yes, Chairwoman. I'll start with Tekle Sikadu. Tekle, are you on the line? It appears as though they're not on the line. Our next speaker was Asmaret Kale Berhane. Asmaret, are you on the line? Asmaret, are you on the line? It looks as though we're not getting audio from Asmaret. So our next speaker is Tracy Gunderson. Tracy, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, good morning. This is Tracy Gunderson with host. I've been attending all monthly council meetings since I was laid off in March. First, I would like to thank you all so much for your support at the last city council meeting for recall rights and immediate coverage of our health insurance upon returning to work. This is such a relief knowing that I will have a job even as it continues to take time for me to be called back to work. Secondly, as you know, I have filed a complaint with the EEOC and the EOG. On November 13th, the EEOC reached out to host for their position statement on our charge. Generally, a company is supposed to respond within 30 days. At this point, I have not heard of host responding to the charge. As far as I understand, the EEOC is still in the process of investigating. Regarding my complaint with the city, I can update you that I have received a response letter from the Phoenix City EOG stating, since host is a lessee at Sky Harbor International Airport, the EOG does have the jurisdiction to monitor the employment policies and practices of lessees and to conduct on-site compliance reviews, and that the director has asked staff with the EOG Council Compliance Division to review my concerns and conduct any follow-up that deems necessary. This is the only correspondence or contact I have received so far. I appreciate the response and continue to hope you will ensure that the city conducts a full investigation of the treatment that I and my co-workers have experienced and continues to monitor host behavior. Again, I urge you to not grant host a rent relief before the EEOC has completed a full investigation and host has resolved all of the issue. It especially makes no sense to do so when their current lease has not even come close to expiring. Thank you so much in your time and help with this issue and everything you have done for us thus far, supporting the host employees. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Our next speaker is Debra Ann Ratowski. Debra, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
We can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay. My name is Debra Rakowski. I worked at HMS Host for 13 years as a bartender. I'm here to ask you to oppose giving HMS Host a lease extension and ask you to investigate this company. So hopefully no one else will have to go through what I went through. Shortly after the current supervisor and assistant transferred over to Blanco Taco, they began urging me to scale back work shifts, reduce my role at the restaurant. And so I initially resisted, but eventually gave in to their demands after it was made clear to me by another assistant manager that the supervisor had put a target on my back. When I filed a grievance with the company about not receiving shifts in accordance with my seniority, my supervisor vowed to me directly that he would get me fired for having complained to HR, saying older women cause too much drama. I was later told that the same supervisor said words to the effect that who wants to see an old hag at the bar who's coughing and wheezing, we have to get her off the schedule. More generally, I noticed how much more poorly management treated the women compared to men. The consistent mistreatment and pressure I experienced at work left me stressed and corresponded with a worsening of my asthma, which landed me in the hospital almost monthly. The environment I experienced ultimately drove me to leave 3 years ago. Thank you so much for listening. I've spoken here before, but have yet to be contacted by an investigator with the city. I'm ready and willing to talk to the EOD. I urge you to encourage the EOD to conduct a full investigation. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Janelle Weaver. Janelle, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hi,
can.
I'm Janelle Kaiser Weaver, and I'm a former HMS employee. I proudly served in your airport for over 25 years. I'm here to tell you just some of my experience with HMS. I absolutely do not think Ghost deserves a lease extension from our city. When I worked there, my supervisor would constantly publicly mock and humiliate me in front of all my coworkers. When I went to HR, they denied any wrongdoing on the part of the manager or his top assistant. Instead, both were transferred to Blanco Taco. Council, there is a blatant, consistent double standard that favors men and younger women employees. And there's a complete disregard of our seniority system. I also encourage you to please, again, investigate more than just the gender and age discrimination that has been alleged. Just a few years ago, a memo was posted on the bulletin board in my unit, Ladio Cafe, along the lines, only English is to be spoken in the unit. As a Latina citizen, I am still offended by this. I took it straight to HR, asked them how and why. They took it down. But the culture of this memo, it remains there today. A lot of my former coworkers at Host still believe you're only to speak English. Could you please, in your investigation, ask the workers? They're afraid to speak out. They're afraid. And this English-only policy, it's still in your airport. Just ask somebody. And it reminds me of a memo issued a very long time ago prohibiting workers to call for emergency assistance, and this ended very badly. I made an anonymous call to you, City of Phoenix, and your response was swift. So I was also happy to hear at the last meeting how Host is now granting breaks because I personally was denied staffing. Ugh.
Our next speaker is Vivian Lavely. Vivian, are you on the line?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time to listen to me. My first and foremost reason here is I want to take time to thank everyone on this subcommittee who has taken the time to listen to us, hear all of our grievances, and help us get the security that we needed to make sure that we would still have jobs after we finally recover from the horrible year that should never be spoken of again. So I do want to thank everyone for their time, all the ladies who have been here. I also want to state that I have given my full support to the women in their EEOC complaint. Again, I'm not someone who personally witnessed anything, but it does not shock me based on the general culture, as Janelle had previously mentioned, excuse me, within the company. So I would like to also request that the EEOC complaint be fully investigated before we consider talking any further in regards to extending host lease extension if they're currently violating the one that they have now. Thank you for your time. And again, thank you for all your effort and work and listening to us. I genuinely appreciate everything you've done.
Our next speaker is Cheryl Grant. Cheryl, are you on the line?
Hi, yes, I am. I'm Cheryl Granton. I worked for HMS Host for 19 years as a server bartender. I'm here to ask you to oppose giving HMS Host a lease extension and to ask you to investigate this company. As another older woman worker at HMS Host, I feel I was singled out for criticism by management. After I commented on how younger servers were idling while others worked, for example, my manager responded by telling me, "Too bad you're not younger." I also saw other women were treated in ways that I feel were unfair, as my coworkers have explained. During the last year of my work for HMS Host, I began experiencing anxiety attacks on my way to work. On one occasion, I remember experiencing an anxiety attack at work, forcing me to leave the floor to calm down by an empty gate for about 15 minutes. I believe the anxiety attacks were directly related to the toxic work environment. Thank you for listening. I have spoken here before, but have yet to be contacted by an investigator with the city. I am ready and willing to talk to the EOD. I urge you and encourage the EOD to conduct a full investigation. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Hewitt Kadane. Hewitt, are you on the line?
Yes. Good
Please
morning.
proceed.
Okay. My name is Hewitt Kidane. I work in HMS Host 14 years until March last 2020. Now, thank you so much for 2 years. Keep for everybody keep the job. For listen everybody city every day. Thank you so much. Now, I didn't have insurance before. I do for the Obamacare. Now 200. I'm staff. I didn't enough the money. Now I'm trying for the access. Maybe I'm wait for the access. But for next time, can you please for everybody keep but a little bit saving ship the insurance. Here for us. Thank you for listening everybody. Thank you so much. See you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Darlene Prentke. Darlene, are you on the line? It looks as though Darlene is not on the line, so our next speaker is Carmen Quintana. Carmen, are you on the line?
Yes. Hola, mi nombre es Carmen Quintana.
I will translate for Carmen. Hi, my name is Carmen Quintana.
Trabajo para HMS Host por 33 años como preparadora.
I've worked for Host for 33 years as a prepper.
Estamos en contra de la extensión.
I'm against the lease extension.
También queremos darle gracias y agradecerle al concilio.
I also want to say thank you to the City Council.
Cuando llegue el derecho de regresar del trabajo. Excuse me.
When it comes to supporting our right to return to work.
Ahora tengo 10 meses sin trabajo.
I haven't worked for 10 months.
Y en octubre recibí una carta.
And in October, I received a letter
que me decían que si para el marzo no nos llamaban para atrás, estábamos despedidos permanentemente.
That if I wasn't called back to work by March, I would be permanently laid off.
También nos cancelaron la aseguranza médica.
And they've also canceled our insurance.
Pero mi nuera me ayudó a arreglar access.
But my daughter-in-law has helped me apply for access.
No fue fácil porque me tuve que esperar como 2 meses sin seguro médico.
It wasn't easy though because I had to wait for 2 months without any insurance.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Scott Welding. Scott, are you on the line? Scott, are you on the line? Oh, it appears Scott is not on the line, so our next speaker is Marhawi Grenes. Marhawi, are you on the line? It looks as they are also not on the line, so our last speaker would be Liren Jacobs. Liren, are you on the line?
I am.
Please proceed.
Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, my name is Leanne Jacobs. I'm the HR business partner for SSP America. I'm here in support of contract extensions for the food and beverage concessionaires at Sky Harbor Airport. I want to thank you for your past assistance and most importantly for your thoughtful approach to this unprecedented and challenging time that we've all been dealing with. I will remain on the line for the duration of this agenda item to answer any questions that this committee may have related to SSP America from an HR standpoint. Thank you again so much for your careful consideration.
Is that the end of the speakers, Matt?
Yes, Chairwoman, that was our last speaker.
Okay. Mario, I have a question for you.
Yes, Madam Chair.
They were host employees, and I know that the DOD department is looking into the grievances that they filed. Can you have an update for us where that stands and what's happening with that when we go to E-Station? If you don't have it now.
Yes, Madam Chair, absolutely. We'll get an update for you from the Equal Opportunity Department on where that investigation is.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just to follow up with that, Mario, like I would like for us in our office to get a briefing on how these complaints work. Like what's the process or how to, I'm not, this is the first time that I'm part of that I see something like this. So I would like to get a briefing or having someone come by and explain to us how do these work? How do the investigations work? And then if they do were to find something, what is the follow-up to that? Because it has been a minute since folks filed for these complaints. And I would, if we get asked any questions, I would like to know how to respond to that because at this point, we don't know how this works and we don't know how these complaints go. And then also I wanted to thank SSP Darren for getting on the phone once again and making yourself available for questions. So thank you to everyone who got on and spoke, and thank you to SSP for always being open and always taking the time to come into these meetings and being with us and as we're trying to figure this out. And like, once again, HMS Hosts does not show to the table. So thanks everyone for everything. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Madam Chair, this is Debra.
Yes, go ahead.
I actually would like to have a briefing as well on the EEO complaint process. I mean, I'm familiar with it somewhat, but I like to better understand the timetable. So if someone could drop by our office, that would be great as well. And then just as a follow-up, on the CARES money, though it's there for rent relief, right, Charlene? I'm trying to better understand. We actually end up with the money, I guess is what I'm asking. The airport.
Madam Chair, to Councilwoman Stark, that is correct. It is my understanding that our share of that $200 million will be given to the airport, not directly to the primes and or the ACDBE partners themselves. There is a caveat in the legislation that also provides the airport a 2% administration fee, which leads me to believe that those funds will come directly, and it's the expectation of the guidelines that FAA sets that then we follow those guidelines in the distribution and the application of those funds.
And just one last question. So you're still analyzing the CARES Act, correct?
We have a couple of our consultants, Councilwoman Stark, that goes through the legislation and provide us guidance. So they are doing that work, that interpretation for us. Then we also have airport kind of advisory councils like Airport Council International and other associations who go through as well and provide airports guidance and interpretation of those federal guidelines. So we still await that information from them.
Okay, thank you. So when you get that information, I hope you share that with us as soon as possible. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions, comments? This is going to go to the council, I believe, next week in executive session. I really and truly believe that we need to make a final decision by the council. I would like to see it go from e-session to full council and make a final decision and not keep, especially the DBEs, sitting out there in terror, waiting to know if their financial reputation and the challenges they're facing are going to throw them into bankruptcy and destroy lives. I'm very concerned. We've been working on this for months now, and it is very complex, and I understand that it is difficult to understand between the subcontractors and the primes. But I really believe these individual operators need relief. They need to know and have some comfort that they can go to an agency and get funding to get themselves out of debt for what they put themselves into debt in operation in the airport. We have the best airport in the world, and I want to see that it stays that way. So I encourage staff to bring all the information to the e-session. Let the mayor know it could be a lengthy conversation, but I really think we need to come together so we all understand and we can move forward on this. Vice Mayor, you asked for to go to e-session. Are you satisfied with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for that, Chairwoman. That would be great. I mean, we have, like I said it before, as a new council person, I just have a lot of questions. I wasn't here when these contracts were formed. So I want to make sure that we can make informed, at least for our office, to make an informed decision as we're moving forward. So yes, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Madam Chair?
With that, we will go to the next item on our agenda.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I just wanted to make sure we're going to go to e-session and then we're going to council. We're not coming back to subcommittee.
Correct.
Okay.
I think it's time a decision is made.
Okay.
And we should have all the additional information we need.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you. Okay. Next item is item 12.
Yes, Madam Chair, item 12 is an update on the freeway program. At the last meeting, Councilwoman Pastor asked for a more detailed presentation on the freeway program, and so Tom Remus, our freeway coordinator, is here to give an update and answer any questions that remain. Tom?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. As Mario mentioned, I'm here this morning to provide an update on the city coordination with the numerous ADOT projects taking place within the city of Phoenix. Some projects are nearing completion and others are only beginning to be studied. The map that you have in front of you show the 11 key projects that are currently underway within the city of Phoenix. I will be talking in depth on 8 of them this morning, but I did want to point out some that are just starting out in the study process. And that's number 7, which is on the top left-hand side of your screen. It's Loop 101 from I-17 to 75th Avenue. It will be a widening project. That's not scheduled to start until 2024, but we are going through the study process right now. Item number 8 on your screen, which is on the left-hand side towards the bottom, it's the widening of Interstate 17 from the I-10 split to 19th Avenue. There's going to be a construction of new auxiliary lanes between 16th Street and 19th Avenue interchanges, which will provide for better access during high traffic times. And then the last one I wanted to point out briefly is number 9, and that's in the center of your screen right above the word Phoenix. And that's work that's taking place at the Hance Park tunnel repair. Anyone who's driven through the tunnel has perhaps had drips on their car as you're going through. That's because there's a number of joints. There's 15 joints in the park. We've gone through, partnered with the City of Phoenix Parks Department as they were putting in the new playground, and we have put in a number of new joints to stop that leaking. We will be continuing to work on future joint repairs in partnership with the parks moving forward. The first project I want to talk about today, though, I'm excited to announce that the new traffic interchanges at I-17, Pinnacle Peak, and Happy Valley Road are now open to the traffic. That just happened this past month. At Pinnacle Peak Road, a new bridge was constructed with 2 lanes in each direction, and there are improved bicycle and pedestrian amenities. At Happy Valley Road, it's the roundabouts were removed and a new diverging diamond interchange was constructed. This new interchange includes 3 lanes in each direction, new bicycle and pedestrian access, and additionally, we have a new bridge art piece. So the Office of Arts and Culture worked with artist Dan Mayer to design the new artistic fencing along Happy Valley Road. The next project that's currently under construction is State Route 101. This widening project started in 2019. The widening project includes adding 1 general purpose lane in each direction between I-17 and Pima Road. Additionally, an auxiliary lane in each direction is being constructed between 7th Street and Cave Creek Road, and there are improvements to the ramps and frontage road connections. As you can see here, it's been quite disruptive, but I think with the lower traffic amounts during the pandemic, work has proceeded quickly. And so we are currently seeing the completion of some sections of the widening. We're seeing new sound walls go in along the corridor where warranted. And there's going to be some new quiet pavement going in as well. This project is still on schedule for completion in mid-2021. The next project that we have is one that you received a presentation on at a policy briefing last year from ADOT, and this is the new changes to the drainage along I-17 between Peoria Avenue and Greenway Road. Construction started here in January of 2020. The work at Peoria Road is almost complete, and now their work is beginning at Cactus Road, and you might see closures along the frontage road there. This construction is replacing all of the old pump stations and putting a new 90-inch pipe in to drain water into the Arizona Canal diversion channel. The project is halfway complete, so we hope to see this done in the next year. Another project that's received a lot of attention is the construction of a new bridge at I-17 and Central Avenue. This entire section of I-17 going from east to west is going to be widened in future years, and that's the project that I mentioned earlier is under study. The bridge, though, is the first item to get replaced. The bridge at Central Avenue was over 50 years old. It needs to be changed out to accommodate the new light rail system that will be going underneath it. It also needs to be widened for the future widening of the corridor. The south side has been taken down, so as you look at the pictures on your screen from left to right, it shows the south side of the bridge being torn down and the new widened bridge going up. The south side will be opening in a couple months, and then the north side will receive the same treatment of being torn down and rebuilt. Completion of this project is expected in fall of 2021. And I should note again that ADOT and the city are working closely together with Valley Metro Rail to coordinate any closures that are taking place on this project as the new South Central Light Rail system is going in as well. The next project to provide an update on is the Indian School Road and I-17 traffic interchange. In February of 2020, the City Council Policy Committee received an update from ADOT on this project. Since that time, ADOT has completed the environmental study and design concept report for this project to move traffic east to west in a better fashion. ADOT is at 30% designs, but they've put a temporary hold on this project at this time. The City of Phoenix, working with the Maricopa Association of Governments, MAG is conducting a bottleneck study along Indian School Road, and they're looking at Indian School Road as a corridor and not just as this traffic interchange. So we want to make sure that we're inclusive of making sure that the entire facility works and that we don't have bottlenecks when traffic come up and over the freeway and get to 27th Avenue. As you know, at 27th Avenue, we have a number of pedestrians, cyclists, transit users, and neighborhood users. So we want to make sure, in working with the Street Transportation Department, that we're looking at all elements in this area. As that additional look takes place, we have requested that ADOT come back and provide additional community meetings to talk about the project. But because we're doing a deeper dive, construction is not going to look to start until 2022.
Tom, Madam Chair.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you go back to that slide? Could we also in the bottleneck and look at, because it's an interchange and it's moving traffic, can we also look at the possibility of a BRT moving through there?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Pastor, I will work with Mario and the transit team to look at that option and bring it back to you.
Thank you.
Good idea.
Madam Chair, the next item that we have in front of you is the Broadway curve reconstruction, a big project. It'll be the largest freeway reconstruction project in the region, if not the state. And it goes from the I-10, I-17 split all the way south past Ray Road. As you may recall from previous presentations, traffic volumes within this 11-mile corridor exceed 250,000 vehicles per day and include those vital connections to I-17, State Route 143 into the airport, US 60, and Loop 202. Just as a refresher of the map in front of you, you see that proposed improvements include 2 HOV lanes, 6 general purpose lanes, and auxiliary lanes in the gold section, 1 HOV lane, 4 general purpose lanes, and auxiliary lanes in the purple section, and a new collector distributor roads in the orange section. Additionally, there will be improved connections to US 60 and State Route 143. ADOT is in final negotiations with the preferred proposer. That's Police, FNF, and Flatiron. This is a consortium of companies. A contract is expected to be executed later this month. Additionally, we wanted to let you know that city communications staff has been coordinating with ADOT on the messaging and stakeholder outreach so that when this project starts, we're able to reach out to all of the communities that will be impacted, from commuters, airport users, and neighbors, to make sure that traffic is flowing smooth and that there are ways to address it. With that in mind, the Maricopa Association of Governments and the Street Transportation Department are working together. MAG is looking to provide additional funding to the city of Phoenix to make improvements to some of our arterials off this freeway network. So there will be improvements to the signals, to the preemption devices, to fiber along there, so that when construction is underway, we can monitor where traffic is going, and if we need to change some of the timing, that would be available to us. Construction on this project is still scheduled to begin in the fall of 2021, so it is right around the corner. A new project to bring before you, I think we haven't talked about this before, though it might have been in your monthly reports, is there's a new study taking place through the Maricopa Association of Governments and ADOT, looking at the interchange of US 60, which is Grand Avenue, 35th Avenue, and Indian School Road. This design concept report proposes improvements that need to be made to this corridor along the arterial street networks, any sort of multimodal connectivity, and looking at how they all intersect with the BNSF railway. These improvements would reduce traffic congestion, improve the pedestrian and vehicular safety, and enhance the multimodal transportation options. Later this morning, you're going to be hearing a presentation from the Street Transportation Department about their build grant that they were successful in receiving. And that build grant will talk about all of the safety and pedestrian elements along 35th Avenue. This particular study is working in coordination with the Street Transportation Department to make sure that we coordinate efforts and pull all of the improvements together at the same time.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Okay. Tom, MAG is part of this. Did I hear that correctly?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Pastor, yes, MAG is behind the funding and is coordinating the study with ADOT.
So that area has a large homeless encampment and dynamics that happen in that area. So I would like MAG, since they have the committee, to also do a study around, or with this study, how we monitor the activities that happen within that area and what are our solutions.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman, we will submit that request to MAG and ask that it be included in their continuum of care dialogue as well.
What proactive measures can we do to assist anybody in need?
Councilwoman, thank you for the suggestions. We will move forward with that and keep you informed. The last item to update the subcommittee is on a study that's taking place at Loop 303 from I-17 to Lake Pleasant Parkway. In coordination with the city's Economic Development Department and Chris Mackey, we were able to get ahead of the curve as we knew the Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing facility would be locating in this area. And we asked that MAG and ADOT do an update to their design concept report. This item hasn't been looked at since 2006, and as we all know, this area is going to change significantly. So we wanted to make sure that we had all of the relevant information about the traffic models, conceptual alternatives, how we want to create traffic interchanges at 67th Avenue, 51st Avenue, 43rd Avenue, and a new interchange at I-17. Right now, this facility has sort of bare minimum construction methods on it. So we want to make sure that we're ready, that once the study is completed, we could move forward with constructing a brand new facility to accommodate the new businesses going in this area. The study was initiated in October of 2020. It'll be completed in the fall of 2021, so that way we could move forward with opportunities for construction of a brand new facility in this area. With that, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, I'm available for any questions on any of the projects we brought forward.
Anyone have questions?
Mayor, I just
very
wanted
good
to,
presentation.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
just I wanted to do the same thing. I really appreciate the update. There's a lot going on with our freeway system, and as I always say, I'm really excited to see those drainage problems going away along I-17. So thank you.
Yes, very good presentation. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
We will now go to the next item, 13.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Pedestrian and bicycle safety.
Madam Chair, item 13, Keeney Knutson, Street Transportation Director, and Assistant Street Transportation Director, Brianna Velez, are here to discuss the pedestrian and bicycle safety programs, and I'll turn it over to Keeney for the presentation.
Thank you, Mario. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, we're happy to be here this morning to present to you and talk a little bit about our bicycle and our pedestrian and bike safety programs. This item was originally scheduled to come last month, but I know we wanted to have some time to be able to talk about this issue and be able to have the time dedicated to that. So at the request of subcommittee back in November, there was a request to provide additional information about our pedestrian safety improvements and our plans for that and how we were coordinating those across pedestrian safety and bicycle safety efforts. And so this presentation is meant to provide that information. So our agenda for today is we're going to talk a little bit about our Office of Pedestrian Safety and what they are doing. This is an office that was created in 2018 with a pedestrian safety coordinator at its lead, and what efforts they're doing to address pedestrian safety issues on our streets. We're also going to get into our capital improvement program and a federal grant that we were able to receive from the U.S. Department of Transportation, as Tom noted in the previous presentation, and it's in one of our highest pedestrian safety areas in the city. This corridor is very important to us in 35th Avenue. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the engineering tools we use to address pedestrian safety items across our city. Then we're going to delve a little bit into and talk about our active transportation program, which is really an evolution and a growth of our bicycle program that we had previously, to be a more comprehensive look at the safety of how people use our roadways and not being in vehicles. So it's really an evolution of that and a growth in our active transportation program. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about our pilot program that we are in the middle of reviewing and implementing, which is really focused in on providing additional recreational space for residents using the streets to be able to, during this pandemic, to be able to get out and social distance as well and recreate. Now, before we go into some of those, I wanted to just provide some numbers and some data. Some of these are ones that we've shared with the subcommittee previously, but I wanted to talk about it. First of all, is when we look at pedestrian fatalities over the last 10 years nationwide, this is a trend that has been increasing across the nation. And so Phoenix, and seeing its pedestrian fatalities rise, is not unique, but it is something that has been rising across the country. I will note that when we have estimated numbers in there, a lot of the times with pedestrian safety or any kind of our fatality or vehicle fatality numbers, those do take at least around 2 years to be able to finalize those numbers, because there is a lot of data that is being crunched through to be able to make sure we have accurate numbers. So when we transition and look at Phoenix pedestrian fatalities over that same time frame, you see that our spike has been very high in some areas and in some years, and especially with 2018, when we created the Office of Pedestrian Safety, we saw our highest number of pedestrian fatalities on our roadways exceeded 100. And so the preliminary numbers right now for 2019, which is the last one we had, and numbers for there is 86. So we did see a drop between 2018 and 2019. As far as the reasons for that, we don't have the analysis yet for that, but I know that we are focusing our focus on education and engineering implementation out there in the streets. We're hopeful is some of the reasons why we see a drop in those pedestrian fatalities. So you may wanted to see a little bit more recent than 2019 if we're looking at how we're doing this year. So these are unofficial numbers, but we wanted to look at the numbers between January and August. So the first 8 months of 2020 versus the first 8 months of 2019. And you see that in 2019 we had 58 pedestrian fatalities, and in the same time frame in 2020 we had 37. So that represents a 36% decrease in pedestrian fatalities in 2020. That could be due to the pandemic and how less people on the streets, both driving, but people being out more active that way. We haven't looked at the numbers but we want to be able to see once 2020 is wrapped up, and we have the numbers for those, we'll be able to see what the actual trends are and what the causes might be for that drop and that reduction. But it is good news compared to what we were seeing last year. But I would mention that this is what we were going to present back in December, but we did run some numbers and want to present this as well. This is actually adding 2 additional months to that analysis, so the first 10 months of 2020 versus the first 10 months of 2019. And you see 61 fatalities in 2019 and 50 in 2020. So that actually represents only an 18% decline. So as I've talked about with the subcommittee before, is it only takes a few really unfortunate weeks or days where we have a number of pedestrian fatalities for any good news that we have or trends in pedestrian fatalities to reverse or to be corrected. And I think from our standpoint, our focus has always been that one pedestrian fatality is too many. But we're happy to see that we do have a reduction here, and that is a good news story, and we hope it is because of our efforts we're making on the pedestrian safety side. As a reminder that when we've done some analysis on this, and this is something our Office of Pedestrian Safety does, is looks at the vehicle homicide unit reports that come out from the police department and looking at these pedestrian fatalities, and you can see the kind of the reasons, and these aren't exclusive, so they may have more than one factor in it, but we see the vast majority of these fatalities happen on our major streets, our arterial roadways, and also nearly 70% of those are happening at dark and dusk hours when we might have visibility issues between a vehicle and a pedestrian. And then signalized crossings, we have almost 60% are happening within 500 feet of a signalized crossing, and that helps us when we look at that to analyze where we might need to have additional signalized crossings, such as hawk signals, things like that we're going to be talking about here shortly. Also, about more than half of them are crossing at mid-block, and then we do have over a quarter of those involving a hit-and-run driver. So now for the remainder of the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Brianna Velez, our Assistant Director, who's going to walk you through that.
Thank you, Keeney. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of this subcommittee. Heat maps such as this one are a great way to provide a visual summary of data. The hotspot map shown represents the last 2 years of data, so 2018 and 2019, for serious and fatal pedestrian collisions within the city of Phoenix. Streets is utilizing the data and the hotspot map to make decisions on appropriate pedestrian safety improvements rather than reacting to one specific incident. Phoenix is very large and spans over 500 square miles with a population of over 1.6 million. Here is the previous hotspot map with the council district areas outlined, and you will see that every council district is impacted. The hotspot analysis helps staff prioritize the locations for safety improvements utilizing the annual Office of Pedestrian Safety $2 million funding. The data is used to apply for safety grant funding, which allows us to do more safety improvement projects. We work closely with internal and external stakeholders to evaluate the data characteristics. We have the right-of-way inspectors do increased nighttime reviews for streetlight outages in hotspot areas, and also use the data to target education and outreach efforts with the schools and community. An evaluation of the data and roadway characteristics helps determine the appropriate pedestrian safety tool. For example, a hawk is typically recommended on our higher volume, higher speed roadways, such as arterials, with a high number of pedestrians or pedestrian collisions. Or adding double-sided street lighting is recommended where a higher number of pedestrian collisions have occurred at night. As I just mentioned about using the data to apply for available grant funding, we are very excited to announce that the U.S. Department of Transportation awarded Phoenix nearly $17.5 million through the Better Utilizing Investments to Leverage Development, also known as BUILD grant. The grant will be used to make a series of safety improvements on the busy 35th Avenue corridor. The project consists of improvements that advance safety, mobility, and economic development in the project area. As you can see, this 3-mile portion of 35th Avenue between I-10 and Camelback Road is a pedestrian safety hotspot, where a higher number of pedestrian-related collisions and injuries have occurred in recent years. This corridor has diverse land uses and includes multifamily residential, commercial, and industrial developments, along with multiple K-12 schools, 2 community parks, and the campus of Grand Canyon University. The 35th Avenue corridor is one of the highest ridership areas for bus routes in Phoenix, with an average of 5,200 daily riders. Improvements planned for this project include installing 3 new hawks at mid-block crossings, installing LED street lighting along the west side of 35th Avenue, completing double-sided lighting throughout the corridor, and improving safety for drivers and pedestrians, installing raised medians at various locations to provide greater vehicle separation and a safe refuge for pedestrians, rebuilding 9 signalized intersections to modern standards that allow for support of new traffic technologies and safer operations, milling and overlaying the pavement to provide a smooth driving surface, and installation of broadband fiber optic cable to allow for the future integration of innovative technologies. While most of the improvements I will be discussing in the upcoming slides are spot improvements, some locations such as this will need to be addressed as a larger capital improvement project to make safety improvements along an entire corridor. Some of the spot improvements that were made in fiscal year 20 using the Office of Pedestrian Safety funding were crosswalk upgrades. To improve driver visibility of existing crosswalks on arterial streets, many crosswalks were upgraded to high visibility crosswalks, which include ladder style crosswalks, yield line markings, and additional signs. Some locations included additional streetlights and ADA ramp upgrades. 85 crosswalk locations on arterial streets citywide were upgraded to high visibility crosswalks. So every non-signalized mid-block crosswalk on an arterial street within City of Phoenix is now a high visibility crosswalk. We believe we've captured all of them, but if we identify any that were missed on arterial streets, then a work order will be immediately generated to upgrade the crossing. Another demonstrated safety improvement that has shown to reduce pedestrian collisions by 55% are hawk pedestrian signals. Hawks are signals activated by pedestrians to stop traffic, which makes it easier and safer for people to cross busy streets. To date, the city has installed 66 hawks citywide, with 17 installed in fiscal year 20. Funding for hawk installations comes from various sources such as grants, developers, capital improvement projects, schools, and now includes pedestrian safety funding. Here's the hotspot map with all 66 hawks displayed. You will see that many hawks have been installed in hotspot areas. There are also hawks that have been installed outside of hotspot areas, but have been located adjacent to schools and in high pedestrian areas to create safer crossings. Shown is the hotspot map with the 17 hawk locations displayed from fiscal year 20. Although no pedestrian safety funding was utilized in the installation of these hawks, you will see that all of them were installed in hotspot areas. To create a more seamless design and construction process for hawk signal projects installed with pedestrian safety funding, new hawk signals will be designed in one fiscal year and constructed the following fiscal year. In fiscal year 20, we were able to complete one new signal at 57th Drive and McDowell Road, adjacent to an elementary school. We are also completing designs on 8 new hawks and 1 new signal that will be installed this fiscal year. We have also dedicated funding this fiscal year for design of 6 new hawks at locations to be determined. As mentioned early on in the presentation, many pedestrian collisions occur in the dark hours, so having double-sided lighting on our arterial streets is important. You will find single-sided lighting on some arterial streets in the older parts of the city, and that is because at one point the standard on arterials was to have lighting on only one side of the street. The current standard, which has been in place for several decades, requires lighting on both sides of the streets for arterials. 2 areas were identified that had single-sided lighting and a high number of serious fatal pedestrian collisions during dark hours. In fiscal year 20, 27th Avenue from Bethany Home Road to Maryland Avenue was designed and construction is planned this fiscal year. Thomas Road, 32nd Street to 36th Street is currently being designed and is planned for construction next fiscal year. Another safety enhancement are pedestrian median islands, which provide an area of refuge for pedestrians. Fiscal year 20 funding was used to design 2 median islands, one at 43rd Avenue south of Baseline Road and at Buckeye Road east of Sky Harbor. The 43rd Avenue and Baseline pedestrian median island, which is adjacent to an elementary school, has been completed, and we anticipate the Buckeye Road project to be completed in March of 2021. In looking at pedestrian fatalities for the first 10 months of 2020, there have been 50 fatal pedestrian collision locations. Shown on the heat map are the 50 locations in blue, and you will see that almost every council district has been impacted, with majority occurring in the central core of Phoenix and within hotspot areas. This hotspot map includes both the 50 pedestrian fatality collision locations and the fiscal year 20 Hawk locations that were installed. The fiscal year 20 Hawks were installed in hotspot areas throughout the city, with many installed near or at locations where a 2020 pedestrian fatality occurred. Similarly, the hotspot map includes both the 50 pedestrian fatality collision locations and the planned fiscal year 21 Hawk and signal locations. The fiscal year 21 Hawks and signals will be installed in hotspot areas throughout the city, with many installations near or at locations where a 2020 pedestrian fatality occurred. Pedestrian safety is definitely a priority for the city, but when we look at roadway safety, all users of the roadway need to be considered, including bicyclists. When it comes to bicycle safety improvements, the Accelerated Pavement Maintenance Program is our greatest opportunity to make striping improvements. Prior to the planned pavement maintenance on a particular street, staff will evaluate the existing striping configuration to determine if lanes can be narrowed to add in bike lanes, add in buffers to existing bike lanes, or narrow lanes to add an edge stripe. If lane removal is needed to add bike lanes or buffers or bike protection is considered, then a public engagement process is required. Then the final striping design is completed. Here is a great example on 15th Avenue south of I-10, where through the evaluation process, it was determined that the lanes could be narrowed to add in a buffer to existing bike lanes to provide a greater separation between the bicyclists and the vehicles. In fiscal year 20, over 40 miles of new bike lanes were completed throughout the city, and buffers were added to almost 29 miles of existing bike lanes. In the first 2 months of fiscal year 21, close to 8 miles of new bike lanes have been completed, and buffers were added to 4 miles of existing bike lanes. As you can see with the hotspot map shown, the location selected for pavement maintenance is based on the pavement condition and not the heat map. However, we still saw several of these improvements made in hotspot areas. Streets is proactively looking at all opportunities to narrow lanes, as narrower travel lanes have shown to encourage slower driving speeds. Similar to what has been done in other cities to support social distancing and pedestrian bicycle safety during the COVID-19 pandemic, Street Transportation is launching a pilot program called Shared Streets for Social Distancing. Shared Streets is intended to support outdoor exercise for people of all ages and abilities and promote social distancing on low-speed neighborhood streets. 8 to 10 streets for local traffic-only restrictions will be selected through the application process for the pilot program. It is a voluntary program, and residents nominate their street. The program will encourage the local residents to get out and walk, run, bicycle, and scoot on their local street, while limiting it to local traffic only and encouraging drivers to drive slowly and cautiously. The program is only available for local or minor collector streets that are at least a minimum of a half a mile. The application process opened in early December, and we have received more than 50 applications. They are currently under review with a focus on prioritizing the locations based on criteria such as high population density areas with a greater need for recreational space, are more than a half a mile from a park, trails, or open space, and locations with a higher percentage of households without cars. Here's a picture of the local traffic-only barricade that will be set up at the selected locations during the pilot program. The pilot program and installation will begin in February 2021, and the program will run through May of 2021. And that concludes our formal presentation, and Keenan and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Chairwoman.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much for that, Brianna and Kini. That was a great presentation. I just have a few questions on this. I know that you said on your presentation that there's going to be more hog lights that are going to be installed. Is that true? To be determined?
Correct. So we, with this year's fiscal year 21, we are looking at identifying 6 additional locations that we will design this year, and then construction will take place in fiscal year 22.
And how are you making those decisions on where they're going?
Madam Chair, Vice Mayor Guardado, we are utilizing the hotspot map and the data that we receive on the VHUs to make a determination on the highest priority areas.
Okay, because I would like to be able to see that, like, like, I mean, just from the heat map, it was great to see the heat map between Councilwoman Pastor and I. I think we have a lot of those issues. So it would be good if you guys could, before those decisions get made, that you guys take us into consideration as you guys are making those decisions. I think that's one thing. I think another thing that I would like to be able to see that, we've met with the street representatives, with the super moms. We met with them, I think it was back in January, right before the pandemic. We met with a group of people and we talked about a need for one over at 75th Avenue, where the school is at, and also Park. And then we talked about, I think another thing that could be helpful is more signage. There's definitely some parts of the city that have tons of signage where they're asking people to slow down. We've had a lot of issues in the last year, in the small streets, in the district, where we've had vehicles run into people's homes. So we've had people even end up in the hospital, because people are rushing in the streets where it's at 50 mile per hour, like people are going 50 or 60. So we've had a lot of issues in the district because of that, and we've had to help a lot of people with reconstructions of homes, and because of what's been happening. So I think I would like to see, how do we figure out a plan on speed humps? How is it that we're able to help in some of these like problem areas, maybe with some speed humps? I know that we also have a lot of issues in deep into Maryville. Kini, you and I have talked about this, about lighting, right? That we have tons of cul-de-sacs in District 5 in the middle of Maryville where there's not a single light. So those areas are incredibly dark. So I know that that's another thing that I think could help with the pedestrian fatalities. The other thing is just like, thank you so much for the work that you guys are doing on the accelerated pavement program. I think that also has been very helpful, but I think we still have a lot of streets that have huge holes still in the district, and I think we need to figure out how do we fix that. And then the last thing, I think we talked about this also maybe over a year ago, and I think there has been some work that has been done on this, is just like these bushes that go out to the streets. I think that's, I know that down Bethany Home, we have a lot of those issues. And we also have on 67th Avenue, where some of these trees are just growing out onto the streets, which I think is also a problem. So I would also, like, I love this and I appreciate everything you guys did. The heat maps, the installation of hawk lights. I appreciate that there's more that are coming in, but I would like to see something a little bit more comprehensive. Like, how do we deal with it? Even on stuff that's not going to cost us a lot of money, which is, the striping of the lines, trying to figure out if there is money for more speed humps. How do we make sure that we are able to maintain these trees and being able to cut them down? I think that's also incredibly important. But moving forward with the hawk lights, I would like to see, there is a couple of places in District 5, and I saw them on the heat map, that I would like for us to talk about on how is it that we can get another hawk light in D5. But, Brianna, Kini, thank you so much for taking this as serious as you guys have. I really appreciate all the work that you guys are putting into this. Yeah, like we get it, we understand it, and we want to continue to work with you guys on how we can continue to accelerate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Chairwoman, this is Debra. I agree with the Vice Mayor. I would like to see a more comprehensive report. What you've done is wonderful, but I worry about speeding, and On December 21st, 16-year-old teenager tragically was hit at 7th Street in Bell, and part of the problem was the car was speeding, and the teenager couldn't judge how quickly that car was coming, and it's just tragic. So I think looking at what we've done with pedestrian safety, we need to talk more about what's happening on our streets. I know, Keeney, you were real helpful on 7th Street as it goes over North Mountain, and we looked at the width of the lanes to try to reduce the speed. We had motors go out on 7th Street because it was getting out of hand, and we actually, the police caught someone going 70 miles an hour on 7th Street, and that's freeway speed. And I want to see if we can blend what you've been doing and look at a more comprehensive approach. I think the Vice Mayor is really on to something. I don't know if we could maybe take what you've done here, come back with some other suggestions. And I think, you may have to work with the police department, because one of the things that we're missing is we just don't have a big motors anymore. And so people know they can get away with speeding because there are not very many officers out there ticketing people speeding or running a red light. So if we could maybe take this and add on what we need to do with the streets just to calm the entire street down, because I think speed is part of the problem with the pedestrian safety. I could be wrong, but if we could look at that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, I just wanted to thank you for the comments, Councilwoman Stark, and Vice Mayor Guardado as well. We do have coordination with the police department, and from talking with Commander Issett, who's responsible for the Traffic Bureau, just recently, he was talking about how busy their group is investigating accidents of all types, not just pedestrian ones, and they have been swamped. And I'd asked my team, and they've said actually, the number of fatalities on our roadways involving vehicles will exceed the number of pedestrian fatalities on our roadways for 2020 by probably almost 50%. So I think the comprehensive approach and that you're discussing, I think, is a good one, and it's something that we can definitely help out with.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Madam Chair, if you recall, just a couple days ago, we had a police officer in a horrific accident at 26th Street in Cactus. Fortunately, he will survive, but it had nothing to do with pedestrians, but had everything to do with another vehicle. So I think we need to build on what we're doing here and look at a more comprehensive approach. Thank you.
Thank you. I absolutely agree. I think speeding is probably one of the biggest problems we have, whether it's vehicle or pedestrian accidents. So I'm very concerned about that, and I appreciate both your comments. I think we need to look at this in more comprehensive and really identify solutions. Even it might be outside of Keeney's department, but I think we need to look at all of the items that it would take to really have an impact. So thank you both. Thank you, Kenny.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I agree with my colleagues. One of the things, though, Keeney and Brianna, is that we are seeing more and more pedestrian incidents and accidents. And so what ends up happening to me, and I'm sure it happens to everybody, is that then there's a social media campaign regarding pedestrian and bicycle safety, and that we're not doing enough. And so somehow we need to be getting our message out to the community as to what we're doing and where we're going, and what's the process. Because I would say, unless you have one lane, every street is probably up for pedestrian and bicycle safety, or we're having issues. And so that's one of the dynamics that I think all of us feel and hear. The other piece that I want to look at is the shared streets for social distancing. I'm not understanding that concept. What it sounds like to me, and I will use a street, let me use Encanto or Palmcroft Street on 15th Avenue to maybe 7th Avenue where Encanto is, Encanto Park. Do they apply? And then I'm visualizing 15th Avenue all the way to 7th Avenue where Encanto is and Palmcroft neighborhood. Do they apply? And then we just put barriers and shut it down?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Pastor, you're correct in the one, we have some criteria that we've put out with the Shared Streets for Social Distancing application that was live throughout the month of December, that closed on December 31st. And as Brandon noted, we had a number of applications in there. When we look and evaluate those applications, and my staff has been very, very busy, not just after December 31st, but even as we're getting applications, looking at them and seeing how they met the criteria. And some of the things we look at, obviously, when we look at something like a 15th Avenue or even an Encanto, I don't think those are necessarily the best streets because of how they're used in a core area of the city of Phoenix. What we've seen, and we'll be getting with each one of the council offices with the applications that were received for your districts to kind of walk through what those streets are, and they are not those ones like you're talking about 15th Avenue or Encanto. It would be something, maybe like a 2nd Avenue in some areas, or an east-west street through there. So that's something we'll be getting with each one of the council offices. But the intent is the ideal street would be one where maybe you don't have continuous sidewalks, you don't have close access to a park or other place to recreate. So during this time when everybody's kind of cooped up in their houses or their apartments or whatever they're living at, is to be able to have them opportunity to be able to get outside and be able to social distance and recreate and get outside without having to worry about being next to somebody or passing somebody in close proximity on a narrow sidewalk. And so in those streets where we would barricade, they are just local restrictions only. So it's really meant to cut down on the number of vehicles that may be going through those areas as cut through, or that don't have a business on those streets. So it will still be open to emergency vehicles, to trash collection, and to people who have origin and destination points on those streets.
Okay, so how I'm interpreting what was just said is that you're looking for areas that do not have the ability to be able to get out and walk with social distancing. The areas are narrow, or the areas are not conducive to that. So you would be looking at a pilot area that you could put barricades or collector streets. I'm thinking of now Oak and 3rd, and then people could socially distance and walk. That's what I'm hearing.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Pastor, that's correct.
Okay, because earlier I had heard parks, so I was thinking it had to be near parks. So that's why I used that example. Got it. Okay, thank you. And then my next question is, I don't see it on the agenda, so I thought it would be part of this, is the reorg of the pedestrian bicycle area.
So
I asked for it to be on the agenda, and so I didn't hear that.
So, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Pastor, there was some discussion recently about some reorganization, but I would probably point to a couple things that we've done. When I got into the director role, shortly after there, I realized we needed to have a better focus because we were seeing a lot of the trends in mobility. We saw scooters coming about. We've seen a lot more people actively walking, jogging, and getting around through other means other than vehicles. So we made a decision, or I made a decision to upgrade what we had previously had was a bicycle program to what we call now an active transportation program. And it's really to emphasize not just bicycle, but other ways that people get around actively on our city streets or using our city right-of-way. And so we have an active transportation program manager. Her name's Marielle Brown, who's been very, she's hit the ground running and has been working with a lot of these groups. And you mentioned the social media aspect, that we are now meeting monthly. Something that she brought on when she got here was to meet monthly with groups like Urban Phoenix Project and Phoenix spokespeople to have that dialogue on a regular basis, to talk about their concerns, to share what we're doing, because we know there's a feeling out there that we're not doing enough. And I'd love to be able to do more, and we're doing as much as we can, and we're wanting to solicit input as much as we can through that process. So that is something we're actively doing. So things like, I know we're working on different projects, like we've added 2 additional canal projects. We're working in both the Vice Mayor's district and then also Councilman Garcia's district. That's part of our active transportation program, to be able to get more active transportation out there as well. I know in your district, Councilwoman Pastor, we're working on 3rd Avenue throughout the Carnation and the Pearson neighborhoods to be able to improve the Sonoran Bikeway in there. That's work of our active transportation team working through that process. So there's a lot of things that they're doing to be able to look forward and be able to be more comprehensive in their way that they look at how people get in and around our city without using their vehicles. So that's really the major program shift that we did about 18 months ago. Some stuff we've done more recently is just more some shifting some responsibilities around. So I know that's gotten some attention, but that really doesn't have an impact on our how our active transportation program is going forward. I would also highlight that some of the things that I pointed to the evolution of the program. Before I came to the department, probably before I came to the department in 2014, we had the bike program, and that was something because of maybe the culture of our department wasn't emphasizing bicycling and alternative forms of transportation enough, so that was created. But as we've seen things move, that was really what the evolution is to be able to appreciate those other mobility elements that people are out there doing, and to be able to make sure we're focusing on those in addition to bicycling. And so I think also in 2014, we had a bicycle master plan, our first kind of bicycle master plan that was approved by council. And we're in the process right now of updating that, and we're going to be kicking that off with the community to create an active transportation plan. So that's going to be kicking off here shortly. So that's really the more comprehensive approach in nature. We're looking at how people getting in and around our streets using different mobility devices and means.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Do you have more, Kenny?
Madam Chair, no, that was the conclusion of our presentation.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, if I might, is
Councilwoman?
there a way that Keeney could go back, maybe sit down with the police department, talk about how we're comprehensively trying to make our streets safer? To hear that we've had so many fatalities, vehicular fatalities, is kind of scary. So I think we need to maybe bring this back in a month. Would that be okay? Keeney, is a month make sense?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, if that's the desire of the subcommittee, we can definitely be back here next month with a more comprehensive view and analysis and coverage of how our roadway safety in general, not just pedestrian and bicycle, but all of the approaches. So we can definitely do that.
Yeah, and I think I also agree with the Vice Mayor with special attention to the processes, how we decide on what we're doing. I understand the hot spots, but maybe we can do a deeper dive into that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Brianna and Kenny. We look forward to seeing you next month.
I will be here.
Thank you. Okay, we will next go to item 14, which was continued from December. Kenny, is that you?
Madam Chair, it is. This is a much more brief presentation, but we wanted to make sure the subcommittee had a chance to hear this. This is really talking about our procedures we've developed as a department to be able to work through our ceremonial sign application and approval process. It is different from what we did recently, or what the council recently approved, which was actually formal name changes to streets. This is more ceremonial, and I know Brianna's going to talk a little more about what it covers, but to give some background to this, you know, a number of years ago, the council acted on a ceremonial name change for Broadway Road to be Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And so that is one of our first ones we had like that in 2020. So the last calendar year, we had 3 additional requests that we received and we processed and had council approval for as well. But what we wanted to make sure is we had a procedure in place that covered all of these, so they weren't treated necessarily as one-off. So this is something that we wanted to make sure we had a chance to get in front of the subcommittee. It's not for action, it's just to be able to provide you information about it. If there's any comments or feedback that the subcommittee may have, we'll be more than happy to take that and be able to adjust our procedures accordingly. So I'm going to let Brianna take us through a brief presentation on this topic, and we'll be more than happy to answer questions on either side.
Thank you, Keeney. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, as Keeney mentioned, street transportation has recently received a higher number of requests for ceremonial signs. So we wanted to formalize a procedure to create a process for these types of requests. Ceremonial sign requests recognize and honor individuals, nonprofit organizations, significant events, and national figures, and City of Phoenix landmarks. The honoree criteria is a minimum of 10 years community involvement by demonstrating extraordinary, consistent, voluntary commitment and dedication to the community, or have made a significant and clearly defined contributions to the country, state, or City of Phoenix through cultural, humanitarian, historic, or military achievement, and have lived in or otherwise identified with the community in a substantial way. This procedure does not pertain to the official renaming of streets, which is a process managed through planning and development. There are 2 types of ceremonial signs, which include ceremonial street name signs, which are typically installed at major intersections and are mounted on traffic signal poles just below the illuminated street name sign. These signs are 24 inches by 90 inches in size. This is similar to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard sign located along Broadway Road. The other type of sign is a ceremonial sign topper, which are typically located on local intersections and flag mounted to an existing signpost. These signs are 8 inches by 30 inches in size. The first ceremonial sign topper will be installed this month and honor Dr. Louisa Stark. All ceremonial signs are blue background with white lettering so as not to confuse drivers with the official city street names. The illuminated street name signs are not allowed. The requester is responsible for all costs, including fabrication, installation, maintenance, and replacement of signs. The city will fabricate, install, and maintain the signs. Ceremonial sign requests will need to be submitted through their respective council district office. If the council district is supportive of the request, they will be referred to streets to process the request. The requester will be provided with the application and will need to provide the honoree's qualifications and identify the proposed location and sign type. The requester will also need to sign a letter agreement to fund all of the cost. All ceremonial sign requests must be approved by City Council. Street transportation will ensure the requester is notified when the request is scheduled for City Council action. And that is the end of our short formal presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions, comments?
Just a quick question. First off, I appreciate that you put together a procedure, but do we need to take action, or is this just you're highlighting your new process?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, yeah, just highlighting the procedure there. Since it's a procedure, department procedure, it doesn't require council action or subcommittee action. We just wanted to make sure that which direction we're going with the procedure doesn't cause any concerns or issues for any of the council members that we might want to take into account in the procedure. But as Brianna noted, that anything that comes out of any of these ceremonial name changes will still have council approval as part of the process. So there will be council action with individual requests.
Okay, well, good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We have, Matt, do we have any public?
Chairwoman, we do not.
Okay. And Are there any additional requests for future agenda items? Okay, hearing none, we will be adjourned.